Time to gather round for our weekly trip into the archives. The history of music in Perth is rich and brimming with characters, stories and songs. And one of them is RTRFM's Ross Chisholm. Each week he drops into breakfast to take us to the land that time forgot. Good morning. I've got the blinds drawn. Sorry.
I know. I was looking out because it's sort of light out there at the moment.
It is. I'll amend that in a moment. But it's grey. I can see through the cracks.
Oh, okay. Well, there's sort of...
We'll check that.
We'll check that. Who we're visiting this week?
Yes, I'm very excited. Some more rock and roll kind of sounds, right?
Yes, definitely. The band Lash.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we'll go back before Lash.
Okay.
Because the band came in for some criticism, which I thought was rather unjustified, that they were industry sort of puppets because of some of the songwriting credits. But it wasn't quite like that.
Okay.
But it all started back at that well-known haven of dissent at Santa Maria College in Attadale.
Oh, my goodness.
Yes. A bunch of young women were attending school and got a band together, which was called Exterior. They gigged around, obviously not at the pubs because they were still in high school, and they actually got a bit of a profile.
Okay, while they were still at school.
Well, yeah, I think they started at school. Maybe they'd sort of left school by the time they were doing some of the bigger ones, although they didn't quite hit the pubs until about 2000.
All right.
Or maybe 1999, whatever. And all four members of the original lineup of Lash were actually in the band at various times, not necessarily all at the same time.
Okay.
Okay. And by the time they became, because Exterior basically changed their name into Lash, so by 2000 you had Jessica Bennett on lead guitar, Micaela Slayford on vocals and bass, Belinda Reid on rhythm guitar and vocals, and Jacqueline Pearson on drums. Now, they were gigging around Perth in 2000, up until about July of 2000, at places like the Grosvenor and those sort of indie places, and Mojo's was another one. And they actually got seen by one of the East Coast industry types who thought, that's the dream. Yeah. Maybe. Dream and nightmare at the same time.
Okay.
So they took the band to Sydney. I think it was Sydney. And sort of produced them. Now, the band had already had a 3-song cassette under the Exterior name that was promo only. And all 3 songs were, well, at least 2 of them were re-recorded under the Lash name. And it took a while. The recording process was late 2000, and they started releasing singles in 2001. The first single was called Take Me Away, but I'm not going to go for that.
Oh, I remember that one.
Yes, I'm going to go for the B-side, which was definitely recorded in Perth, and it was almost certainly... I'm going to say almost certainly, probably done under the Exterior name. But by the time it came out, it was obviously Lash. This is Lash and Aloha Mr Hand. And have a think about what that would actually mean, that term, Aloha Mr Hand.
I got no idea. All right, Ross joins us for The Land That Time Forgot, looking at Lash this morning. Oh, yeah. Blasting eardrums this morning. Lash on The Land That Time Forgot.
And Aloha Mr Hand, which was the second song on their Take Me Away CD single, which came out in March of 2001, although they didn't do the launch or local launch for that until May of 2001 at Amplifier, by which time they had returned to Perth.
Okay, so they got spotted at a gig in Perth in the early 2000s.
Middle 2000, 2000. Taken over east.
Yep.
And taking a look at the songwriting credit, which is what got them into lots of problems.
Okay.
Because I said a number of the songs had actually been written in Perth before they were discovered, and yet there is a co-write or a couple of co-writes on some of the songs, which makes me think, what's going on here? But I digress.
All right, so we're in the early 2000s.
Yep.
And they've put out that...
They put out the first single.
That single.
Kept up gigging, playing at the Lookout, the Fly By Night, and had their second single out because it's big record company. Oh yeah, you got to bring a number of singles out and then you come out with the album, etc., etc.
Sure.
So they got their second single out, which was called Beauty Queen. That came out in August of 2001, and there's actually a remix of Beauty Queen on here as well. From the first song and even this song, they're a rock band, straight rock band. And the remix, it's just like, who is this? This is not them.
So this is on this single that you've brought in.
This is. I'm not going to do for the remix because you just be going, that's not Lash.
What's going on?
Yeah, exactly. So this is Lash from their second single, and it's a piece called Beauty Queen.
I probably have that somewhere taped off the radio on a cassette, taking me back to high school days this morning.
A cassette? What's a cassette?
Oh, shush. Ross, we are going back to the land that time forgot this morning with Lash. Ross?
Caitlin's revisiting her past. That was Beauty Queen. Their second single came out in August of 2001. And
this is the very first time that we've opened a CD for this segment and a temporary tattoo of a heart with an arrow through it has fallen out.
Yes, with Lash on it.
And then I reached for it and you wouldn't let me have a bar of it.
It comes with is part of whatever. Okay.
Are you gonna use that?
I might have to shave one of my arms to actually put it on, but anyway.
And big thank you to Zeno for getting in touch as well. He says that track that we just heard sounds like a cross between T-Rex and Elastica. I like it.
Yeah.
Let's give him that.
Yeah, we'll give him that.
Yeah.
The band kept on gigging locally. They did tours as well. Went down to the peninsula in Mandurah, which I don't think Mandurah was actually part of Perth at that point. Anyway, more gigs at the Grosvenor. Brought out their third single. Now, the A side of all three singles were actually on the album, and finally, with three singles out, the label thought, time to get the album out.
Yep, that's how it goes.
Yep. So they brought out the single, which is called Don't Ever Make My Mind Up, which came out in February of 2002, with the album The Beautiful and the Damned coming out in April of 2002. Now, they've done two different versions of Don't Ever Make My Mind Up. There's the rockin' version, and then they call it an acoustic version, but it's more of a semi-acoustic version. And I actually prefer the semi-acoustic version. Sort of shows a bit more dynamics, one could say. This is Lash and Don't Ever Make My Mind Up.
On Breakfast on RTRFM 92.1, Ross Chisholm joins us for The Land That Time Forgot on a Tuesday morning at 7:30.
And that was the acoustic version of Don't Ever Make My Mind Up.
That was acoustic.
Yeah, I know. I think they just held back on the lead guitar, but that was it. Came out in 2002. Their album, The Beautiful and the Damned, came out in April of 2002. I completely forgot about something while I was actually going back and looking at stuff.
Yeah.
That actually been a lineup change. Now, the band, as I told you originally, the original four-piece band played Big Day Out in February of 2003. Now, it was after that changes occurred.
I still remember that was my very first Big Day Out. Because they played very early. They were probably the opener on the main stage, I think.
Yep.
I still remember rocking up at midday when the gates opened, all excited and hearing them play as I arrived.
And where was the Big Day Out in 2003?
It was at Claremont.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm not that old. Is that what you were insinuating?
No, it's just that you can remember stuff like that. It's like, I went to a Big Day Out. Where was it?
That was my first one. It was a pivotal moment in my life.
Oh, okay.
Moving on. So they played the Big Day Out in 2003.
Yep. And not long after that, there was changes. Micaela and her hat, because she was always in a hat. There's always a picture of her in the hat. Left the band. So they needed a replacement vocalist and also a replacement bass player. And they didn't get one person, they got two. So Nikki Wilson came in on vocals, and I've got no idea where she came from or where she went on to.
Okay.
And they had a male bass player.
Okay.
Dan Bowles. And I think it's the Dan Bowles who used to play in Crawl Space, another band who probably deserve a Guernsey here. Now, this second lineup did gigs at the HQ, Fly By Night, Mojo and Paddo, and also did a tour of the Southwest with Spencer Tracy. But by January of 2004, it was all over.
Okay.
Now, Jess went on to join Spencer Tracy and did one release with them, but when they knocked it on the head, she got back together with Jacqueline, and they were part of the Praytels, who had a great deal of success.
Yeah, they were an awesome band.
Yes, but when the Praytels eventually knocked it on the head, Jess and Jacqueline both headed to Melbourne. I believe Jacqueline is an academic these days. Jess may or may not be a studio engineer. I'm not quite sure about that. Belinda went on to have her own band, which I think was Silver Grenade from memory, but I believe she's selling real estate now. Micaela has disappeared, Dan Bowles has disappeared, and no idea of what happened to Nikki Wilson or whether that was her real name.
Okay. Well, if anyone can shed any light on the whereabouts of the members of Lash, where they've gone and what they've gone on to, please do get in touch, studio@rtrfm.com.au.
This has been an RTRFM podcast. RTRFM is an independent community radio station that relies on the public for financial support. You can subscribe online at rtrfm.com.au/subscribe.